So for this last video, we're again just going to review solving by the quadratic formula. And just a reminder, quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So the quadratic formula is kind of special in that you can always use this to solve any quadratic equation that you have. Solving by factoring is great when you can factor, but not every equation you can factor. Solving by square roots is also great, but you have to be missing this x term here. But the quadratic formula you can always use. You could even use it for those that you are missing the bx term. So let's say this was actually x squared minus 1 equals 0. You could solve this using the quadratic formula by just adding in your x term by replacing it with 0x. And then using the quadratic formula from there. But let's go ahead and go through this first one. So my first step is I want to make sure that all terms are on one side and set equal to 0. This one isn't, so I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides first. My second step is to go ahead and label my a, b, and c. And so here my a is just equal to 1, b is equal to negative 10, and c is equal to negative 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug all of that information into my formula here. So x is equal to negative b. So here b is negative 10, so I'm going to replace that in parentheses here. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, which again b is negative 10, and I put that in parentheses, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 1, all over 2 times a, which is 1. So here I have two negatives right next to each other. Those really cancel each other out. So this is really saying negative 1 times negative 10, which is just a positive 10, plus or minus the square root. Here I'm just going to go ahead and enter all of that information into Desmos. But you do need to be careful. So when I have negative 10 squared, it's very important that you put parentheses around your negative 10. Minus 4 times 1 times negative 1, and I get that this comes out to be 104. And 2 times 1 is 2. And now, just like we did with the square roots, I want to go ahead and break this off into two different things. So now I have 10 plus the square root of 104 over 2, and then 10 minus the square root of 104 over 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and type that into Desmos. And so I have 10. I'm going to go ahead and hit that slash button first to make my fraction. That's 2. And then I press the up arrow key and put in my square root. So rounding this to the nearest tenth, I get 10.1. Replace that plus with the minus, and I get negative 0.1. So my answers here are x equals 10.1, negative 0.1. Again, these are just points that where the graph crosses the x-axis. So I could, if I wanted to write these as ordered pairs, they could be 10.10, negative 0.10. And if I were to graph this, I would see that's the points where it crosses. Okay, let's do one more. So here, this one's already in standard form, so I can go ahead and label my a, b, and c. So a is equal to 2, b is equal to negative 13, c is equal to negative 24. Plugging those in, I have x equals negative b, which is negative 13, plus or minus the square root of negative 13 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 24, all over 2 times a, which is 2. Negative 13 gets me a positive 13. And I'm going to go ahead and put that into Desmos, so I have negative 13 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 24, and I get 361. All over 2 times 2, which is 4. And then now I'm going to break these off, so I have 13 plus the square root of 361 over 4, and then 13 minus the square root of 361 over 4. And I'm just reusing what I already have typed out. And so I see that first one just comes out to be 8. And that second one comes out to be negative 1.5. So my two answers are 8, negative 1.5.